APAC represents 40% of global GDP. So you can see that there's huge opportunity in a very, very diverse region. The needs of Japan are different to the needs of China. India is exploding with SaaS software, AI. Australia, one of our larger markets, again, very different. Southeast Asia, the complexities of Asia make it a joy to work in.
Welcome to Analyse Asia, the premier podcast dedicated to dissecting the pulse of business, technology, and media in Asia. I'm Bernard Leong, and today we're going to explore how the internet economy is driving Asia's next wave of innovation. With me today is Paul Harapin, Chief Revenue Officer for Asia Pacific and Japan at Stripe. We'll dive into how Stripe is shaping the future of digital commerce through AI and stablecoins, and what this means for businesses and consumers in the region. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bernard. It's great to be here.
Okay, so I've done some work to look at your background, and I want to start always as your first-time guest on my show. We're going to look at your origin story. Tell me, how did you start your career in technology?
Well, back in Sydney, I finished Sydney University. I did an economics degree. And back then, you had all the employers come to campus. And I thought I'd probably work in the finance industry. I wasn't 100% sure, but I wanted to make sure I filled my time of interviews so I could practice. So I put all the banks down, the merchant banks, etc. I even did an interview with the Australian Federal Police for an undercover role, just out of interest.
Interesting.
But I added IBM to the list. Back when I finished high school, there were no computers in high school, and even when I joined IBM, it was only mainframes, no PCs. But the IBM guy did an interview where a very important thing of discovery for anyone in sales, where he didn't tell me all about IBM. He actually asked me about what I wanted to do. And I always wanted to travel. Coming from, my father was a refugee from World War II into Australia. We didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't have holidays, we didn't travel. And my grandmother, though, gave me this view of the world, and I always wanted to travel and potentially be a diplomat. And he just said, if you join IBM, we'll train you. We have offices all around the world and have the opportunity to travel. And so I did the second interview, the third interview, ended up joining IBM. And I worked out after 6 years that big company environment wasn't really for me. Mm-hmm. And I joined a startup, and I just did startups ever since. I realized building the tech companies and helping Silicon Valley startups expand into Asia, that was where my passion lay. And so I've done that now for many, many decades.
Okay. Well, you have held leadership roles across major tech companies, VMware, VCE, and Domo before joining Stripe. Mm-hmm. What inspired you to make the leap from enterprise software to now financial infrastructure?
So for me, it often comes down to two things. One is the people, and two is the opportunity and what's there. And I'm always wanting to learn. That's a great thing about startups. You're always learning. So I was actually interviewing with another company to run their Asia business. And my good friend, who I also worked with at VMware, would have been my boss again. And so I was doing the interview all the way up through the global CEO. And he said to me as we finished, he said, "Hey, would you be a reference?" I said, "Sure. Who for?" He said, "For me. I'm into this." "What do you mean? I'm coming to join you." He said, "Well, I'm interviewing to be CRO for Stripe." And during the interview with our CEO, Stripe CEO, I said, "Hey, who runs Asia for Stripe?" And he said, "Well, funny you ask. There is nobody at the moment. We need someone." And thus, I talked myself into a role, and Mike Clayville, who's very well known in the tech industry, joined as CRO, and I joined 3 weeks later, and that was almost 5 years ago now.
Wow, that's an interesting story. So yeah. I know Mike when he was in AWS.
Yeah,
and he was
right.
the COO.
Yep.
And when I had the conversation when he was still the CRO,
yep.
And then we were talking a lot about Stripe. But before we get into the main subject of the day, I want to ask you, looking back at your career journey across Stripe and going through startups, big tech, what are the key lessons you can share with my audience about your career journey?
I think what's important to me is the people is everything. Regardless of what your product is, your service, it's the people you surround yourself with. And I think I've had a very high quality bar across my whole career. And I've been very lucky to work for some amazing companies like, Tivoli in the early 90s, mid 90s, to VMware, and now Stripe and some others as well. And it's the quality of people that resonates more than most. And it's really hard to get into Stripe. We hold a really high quality bar, which I love. So from the youngest employee to, the old people like me, maybe I slip through the gaps, but everyone is high quality, everyone is passionate, and it's just a joy to come to work. Then it's really about making sure that you put everything in to what you do as a startup, because if you don't, you'll never be as successful as you could do. I was looking back on this with someone the other day in a discussion on a CEO, a paid CEO versus a founder CEO. And I think where I've been able to be successful is, whilst I'm not the founder of this company or VMware or anything, I've come in relatively early and I run with a founder mindset. I treat it like it is my company, and I did start it. And I think that's the difference, because I would recommend to people that even in this sort of role, you drive to do the best thing for the company, not the best thing always for yourself. And sometimes there's that bit of conflict, but people and passion really is a summary.
That's a great lesson here, because I think people undervalues loyalty to the organization, doing for the organization beyond yourself. I think that's a great lesson. So I'm going to get to the main subject of the day, where we talk about Stripe, AI, and
I'm more comfortable talking about Stripe.
Okay, so let me set the stage with Stripe. Stripe is synonymous with seamless, frictionless, and safe payments. Okay, many businesses, including myself, in all forms and shapes, are all using Stripe for payments. But the company has already evolved beyond that. So maybe to help my audience to baseline, can you provide a high-level view of Stripe's mission and its role in enabling the internet economy across the Asia?
Yeah. Our goal really is to drive and increase the GDP of the internet by building programmable financial services and financial infrastructure that enables merchants of any size, from the smallest startup to the largest global multi-billion-dollar corporation, to be able to do business in any country in the world, and to do business not just simply in taking payments, but being able to engage in all the surrounding capability of that money movement across the globe. We have a suite of software, SaaS software, we call our revenue and financial automation suite, which is becoming really even more relevant with the advent of AI and usage-based billing, SaaS-type billing, subscription billing, the invoicing around that. You need to charge, collect, and file taxes. We do that in over 100 countries. Bank reconciliation, in-store terminals, and much more. So we're really, payments is the foundation of the company, but that financial infrastructure, we've built a whole surrounding capability of software, services, and hardware that really delivers really strong outcomes for customers through a very strong API-driven platform.
So I have always go to different restaurants. Sometimes I actually even seen the Stripe's POS systems be in place. So Asia is probably one of Stripe's fastest growing regions. It's very similar to a lot of other tech business. What's driving this growth, and are there any unique challenges and opportunities that Asia present as compared to all the other markets out there?
All of the above, Bernard. When we say we're trying to grow the GDP of the internet, a stat from last year is that Stripe processed $1.4 trillion in global revenue. That represents 1.3% of global GDP. APAC represents 40% of global GDP. So you can see that there's huge opportunity in a very, very diverse region. And the needs of Japan are different to the needs of China. India is exploding with SaaS software, AI. Australia, one of our larger markets, again, very different. And so Southeast Asia, the complexities of Asia make it a joy to work in. I think you see in Southeast Asia, one of the opportunities is Southeast Asia, India, is it's a world leader in local payment methods, wallets, real-time payment capability. It's really leading, and not just for itself, actually in influencing what happens in the rest of the world. You see, Brazil now has PIX. Well, PIX, like UPI in India, is effectively a partnership. They've worked together to deliver this real-time network. Japan is really exciting because it's still very much a cash-driven society, very high in-store retail, and coming through with a platform economy, which is where we're very strong across the rest of Asia and the rest of the world. You mentioned the fact that you go into a restaurant and see a Stripe terminal. All of that is driven by a platform partner that is delivering services to that cafe or to that restaurant, and Stripe enables all the financial component of their SaaS offering and platform offering into that market. So the opportunity here is tremendous. We're looking at some of our banking as a service products, Stripe Capital for lending, card issuing. Many of our customers are using that, and we're bringing that here to Asia. So I think the challenges is sort of an inverse of that. It is a complex region. Every country is different. Every country has their own regulatory framework. Recently, you see the Reserve Bank in Australia has spoken about banning surcharging. Well, many other countries don't have surcharging. Countries like India, Thailand, their reserve banks and governments are trying to uplift their community. And how do you do that? Via digital payments, because that really changes the world for a lot of people who are less fortunate. They're unbanked or underbanked. They can't get credit. They don't have a bank account. But with a phone-based wallet, they can actually partake in digital transactions. And so we're just very proud to be supporting a lot of these communities and merchants who grow their business, not just locally, but globally. A lot of our business, particularly here in APAC, traverses the rest of the world. The ability to start a company in Singapore and within a week be processing with customers in 40 countries around the world if you wish to, simply by clicking a few buttons in the Stripe dashboard is fantastic. And we see customers take advantage of that all the time.
I actually like that experience. I always enjoy looking at my Stripe dashboard. So I want to come to talking about one of the most biggest topic is about AI and agentic AI for internet commerce. I think without doubt, AI in the last 3 years has been the most hot topic. And I think Stripe has actually integrated a lot into its products. Let's talk about what this means for businesses. How is AI actually transforming the way how businesses are managing, say, payments and fraud prevention today?
Yeah. I think on the AI topic, we're very early in the cycle. I think it's like we've discovered fire and we're trying to work out, well, this is interesting, but what do we do with it? And it's moving so fast that you can have a conversation with someone and 3 weeks later, things have changed. And the AI companies are moving really fast, whether they're Silicon Valley-based AI, China-based AI companies, India. That, I think, is the triumvirate of where the majority of AI companies will come from. Just the momentum in those three countries is quite phenomenal. The way Stripe has approached this, our foundation is a company of self-service. So a merchant like yourself, Bernard, you probably logged on to Stripe, set up your own account, and now you are processing and taking payments without the involvement of anyone else. And because we can do that, an AI agent is really just another self-serve customer. And so we have foundationally built our company without knowing it for the future of AI and agentic commerce. In addition to that, we've built and continued to iterate and build really fast agentic commerce toolkits. They're being downloaded, thousands of times a week from merchants who are starting to build in the capability of agentic into their platform. Now, again, as I said, still early days. You'll see some capability out there. There's simple things like most checkouts of a website are built for humans. They're not built for AI. And so the AI agent can check you out, but it actually has to fill in the fields like you would as a human. Now, we're helping change that, but that requires a change on the e-commerce side. not just the Stripe side. And so that evolution is happening at scale. On the fraud side, we built our fraud management software using AI and machine learning, years ago. So it's built on that framework, and we continue to iterate on its capability as AI increases. We're using AI internally at Stripe across a whole range of vectors, from managing fraud to making sure that a customer using Stripe can have their customer check out and be presented with the right payment method at the right time. For example, if you're buying a couch, you may be presented with a buy now, pay later option automatically, because AI sees that is the biggest converting option for that type of purchase. If you're, buying a $30 t-shirt, it could be a credit card that's put up, or a Shopee Pay wallet or something like this. So I think for us, there's two aspects. How do we leverage AI and continue to build AI into all of our software and infrastructure so that we're producing better performance, better results, better fraud management, better conversion experience for our customers? And then how do we enable agentic commerce for our customers, particularly the AI companies and retail merchants, so that process can happen rapidly without them having to worry about the ins and outs of how all the payment flows work? We just provide the infrastructure that allows them to execute on their business model of AI that they wish to, and everyone will do it slightly differently.
I think it's interesting. You brought up a very interesting example, which I didn't thought about. Like, say, these days people go to ChatGPT and they look for different products in e-commerce site. And then, of course, the question is whether ChatGPT is going to put a buy button there. And if there's a buy button, the agent needs to interact directly with the payment system. And I thought that when you use the example of how the agentic AI starts to fill the forms for the fields and then get the credit card and then do the payment transaction, it is interesting because now you're giving the agentic AI some degree of autonomy. I guess, how would you define agentic AI and its importance for Stripe to actually facilitate that agentic AI flow in the bigger process, right? I mean, fraud detection is one aspect, but of course there are other aspects where the AI actually helps with all the other parts of Stripe's businesses.
Yeah, I think it's critical for us. I mean, we have such a deep focus on this like nothing I've ever seen before, partly because we see the potential as being world-changing. I also think that everything is moving really quick. So this is not a time to be sitting back thinking about what's going on, because it's happening as we go. And so there's an opportunity for us as a very fast-moving, innovative company to jump into that. The example that we were talking about there is, as your AI agent or interface will now not only show you, the best glassware that you're looking to buy and all the options, but will allow you to purchase. You give them your credit card, they are then able to use Stripe's issuing virtual card capability to then create multiple virtual cards just for the amounts that are being transacted, execute on those, and then they're disposed of. And so your card is securely on file with the AI agent tokenized via Stripe, but they issue virtual cards off the back of that. So your card is not going to all of these retailers. It's a virtual card that's going through. So building that flow with the capability so it all happens seamlessly, in addition just to the normal continuing checkout capability, where we optimize everything about the conversion ratio so that as any human or agent hit the checkout, the experience is optimal to convert as quickly as possible. We have a wallet called Stripe Link. It enables you to check out within 6 seconds.
Yes.
You can use it, to pay for your Uber in America or book your Airbnb. And that opportunity now benefits the merchant, because when you want to buy and you have the excitement to purchase, nothing gets in your way, because we know 50% of people abandon a cart purchase when it's too frictionful. You check out, you get a code, you hit the code, and you're done. And so that's where all the innovation is happening for us, as well as a lot of the internal work on fraud, optimizing our own engineering teams and leveraging products so that we can develop faster, more products faster with even higher quality.
Interesting. I was just reminded of the fact that I was using Stripe Link to actually pay my production team direct.
Fantastic.
Using my
Thank you. You should be a reference customer for me,
6 seconds is pretty good.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think one interesting thing that you brought up during this whole flow conversation is that there is also some differentiation in terms of Stripe's approach, right? Because it's no longer just being a traditional automation or just have a direct transaction, or even rule-based. Now, it seems to me that Stripe will be able to do adaptive type of payment flows as compared to the past. Am I right?
You are in many ways. A good example of that is we call adaptive pricing, which is the ability for a consumer to check out, and maybe it's a cross-border transaction. I'll use the example of, we're here in Singapore, maybe I want to book a hotel in Thailand. It presents Thai baht costs. I don't know what that means in Singapore dollars, so now I have to get a calculator and a FX and try and work it out. Or it gives me a sort of a SGD number, but it's not really SGD. I end up paying in baht. What adaptive pricing does is able to see where you are and present you with those prices. And if I'm here in Singapore, I can check out with a Singapore price on my Singapore credit card and I'm charged Singapore dollars. But the merchant gets the Thai baht that was there. And so we manage that process for them. So it's very seamless, and just simple things like that, which look simple but are very complex to build, result on average so far in 18% increase in execution of a transaction. An 18% increase in business for anybody is a big increase in revenue. So they're the sorts of things we're very proud of, and that's just one example of the many innovations.
So any other more exciting AI-powered capabilities that Stripe may be building for businesses and changes how businesses and small businesses or even large enterprises?
I think there will be, and we'll talk to a few of those companies at our Stripe Tour event coming up. And so maybe you can put those links in your podcast afterwards. I can't talk about them just now, but definitely over the next couple of weeks, we'll see some of those be announced.
Or maybe I get you on the show to talk about it.
Happy to.
Okay. So what's the one thing you know about the application of AI in commerce that very few people do, from Stripe's perspective?
Good question. I think it's really the speed of how organizations are trying to work through the complexities of these transactions. Because there's many things that go into financial services. People often think that, hey, I go onto a website and I give them my credit card, and that's really simple. Well, there's a world of complexity of regulations, government controls, money laundering management, credit risks, all the fraud risks that go on with people trying to do things. And I think a lot of people don't understand the underlying complexities. It's sort of akin to the traditional iceberg picture, where you see that bit of iceberg sitting out of the water, but underneath there's so much. And that's how we've founded Stripe, was really to take away and obfuscate all of that complexity of the global financial system so that merchants and software companies and platforms can really focus on what's important to them, which is their business, not have to worry about the complexity of this system. Because if you imagine going back 20 years, even sooner actually, setting up a global organization in multiple countries was highly expensive. You had to have companies and structures and banking relationships and everything in those countries. It's what slowed global commerce. And you can see now that with Stripe customers last year grew 38% over the Fortune 500, which grew about 5%.
Wow.
And so the growth leverage of using Stripe and its ability to scale really quickly is truly delivering on our promise, which is to increase the GDP of the internet.
So I want to talk about stablecoins, which some people say is the ChatGPT moment for crypto. I've been a great user of stablecoins over the years, being a crypto person.
Right.
So I think one interesting thing that happened last year was the acquisition of Bridge, which I think was probably one of, Stripe's most interesting acquisition, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how Stripe has started to integrate stablecoins into its payment stack, and I want to unpack that. So maybe to start, why did Stripe has now decided to support stablecoin transactions now, and what problem are you trying to solve for the customers? I think to really appreciate this is as probably some of the US audience may not think about how difficult payments are done in our part of the world.
Yeah.
And stablecoin seems to be a very emerging markets kind of phenomenon. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, I think it was an exciting move, us really diving deeply into stablecoin, and we've since brought another company called Privy, which has more crypto wallet-based infrastructure. But just to focus on stablecoin as a whole, I think we can simplify a couple of things. Our region, Latin America, a number of other regions, currencies can fluctuate. Money movement can be difficult. The old world financial system is inherently hundreds of years old. And, we're using systems like SWIFT to send money. You fill in forms and file that, and the money turns up 3 days later. I think what stablecoin enables is one, as its name suggests, the security and stability of the currency. In an initial case, it's a USDC, US dollar pegged stablecoin. So a company, for example, that we have like Starlink that may wish to transact in Argentina, where the currencies fluctuate dramatically, they can use stablecoin for the transaction, and now they know it's stable. Significantly, they can also move that money rapidly using the stablecoin infrastructure. In fact, one of our team was in Bolivia the other day, and the duty-free at the airport in Bolivia only accepted stablecoin, which is amazing. And then the ability now, there's companies that have wallets. We've announced a deal with Visa where merchants can also create Visa cards that you can pay in store off the back of a stablecoin. I also had a Japanese customer I met a little while ago whose business is sending secondhand cars to Africa, the Caribbean, and many such countries. And his biggest business problem was the fact that his customers, say in Zimbabwe, would have to come to the office carrying bags of US dollars cash and pay security guards with machine guns. And then the secondary problem is he's now got bags of cash that he needs to send back to Japan. And so the stablecoin will, I think, rapidly disrupt the way money moves around the world. The other side of this, interestingly, we're seeing a lot of interest and have done some business already with large global corporations that have offices around the world and very mature treasury departments within their corporations actually looking to use stablecoin to manage how their treasury floats around the world. And so they're two initial use cases that we think really mean that this disruption will flow through. We're still on an early phase. Yeah. But if you look at Bridge's growth compared to Stripe's early growth, as Patrick talked about at our conference in May, it's growing at a super fast rate, faster than Stripe did. So we're really excited about the interest we're seeing in stablecoin, particularly in our region here in APAC.
So cross-border trade is now probably one of the massive pain points for businesses in Asia. I think people do maybe not appreciate this, but how can stablecoins make global commerce more efficient and cost-effective? I think you brought up a very good point about some countries with very volatile currency exchange rates. That's one use. The other is to fight against inflation. Are there any kind of how other ways that stablecoins can become very impactful to the commerce?
I think you'll start to see also that it floats down to the consumer level. So we talked about, the volatility area. We talked about large corporations managing treasury and float and being able to move stablecoin. And you'll see a growth of stablecoin around the world. You'll see that many countries are now exploring what this means for them. I don't think any country can divorce itself from the need of a digital currency. And so, again, we're early days in this, but I think you'll see also consumers start to adopt stablecoin, particularly where they might be traveling around the world, just want stability. And so wallets that are backed by stablecoin with a with a credit card or debit card at the front end is another area that you'll start to see, along with encompassing other crypto options as well. I think the challenge of crypto with companies is its volatility, and the whole idea of stablecoin is you say, well, this stablecoin is USDC. Its volatility is only matched by the currency itself.
Yeah.
And so I know if I grab my currency in this country, immediately convert to stablecoin, I now have a stable float to manage my business with.
So one thing that comes out a lot is some regulators are still cautious about digital assets. I think it's different countries, right?
Yep.
So for example, now US have the Genius Act.
Yep.
And I think Singapore, Japan, and some of the more mature Asia-Pac countries have very clear stablecoin regulation, but maybe some other countries don't.
Yep.
So how does Stripe think about, say, navigating, say, compliance and trust while also innovating and sort of bringing stablecoin technology across the region itself?
Yeah, we think about it front of mind. We have a real focus on being guardians of the financial ecosystem. We have teams here in Singapore and Europe and America of people that work very closely with the government. I meet also regularly with MAS here in Singapore, Reserve Bank in Australia. And, our role is not to tell anyone what to do, but our role is to help educate and show what's happening in the market, provide some guidance and support. We obviously have an opinion on these things, but our role, whether it's stablecoin or anything else, our job is to really help educate and work with our regulators to get the best results for the country and for the merchants that are processing and building their businesses there. I think with digital currencies, again, when you have something that's disruptive, it's totally different to the normal way of doing things that we've been used to for hundreds of years. Governments and regulators, quite rightly, will take their time, try and understand what's happening. Some will move faster than others. Others will be followers. And that's all okay. Stripe will be supportive of all of those countries so that we can help them with the decisions that they're making and provide a global perspective as well.
So do you see stablecoins as a complement to traditional banking rails, or it could be a complete disruption over the next decade? I mean, not in the perspective of being replacement, but just looking at it from this current juncture and then extrapolate forward.
Yeah, I think things will operate in tandem for a while, and then based on adoption, the disruption will happen faster or slower than what we think. You can never quite bet on these things, but just the speed, the reliability, and the technological advancement that stablecoin infrastructure brings to the market, I think you'll see it disrupt a whole range of money movement options. You're seeing it already, even with some traditional providers making some impacts. But stablecoin, I think, will change the way people think about treasury management across the globe, and I think for the better.
So I think now we should zoom back out, coming back to Asia as a dynamic region for both AI and financial technology adoption. So I think now, from your perspective today, what makes Asia Pacific now a fertile ground for, say, AI-driven commerce and digital payments?
I just think it's the pace and energy of the economies here in APAC. As I mentioned earlier, we represent 40% of the global GDP. You go to countries that are moving so fast, be it Indonesia, India, China. Oh my God, I've been in China, and the energy and pace of invention is phenomenal. Whether it's AI or it's self-driving cars or robotics or passenger drones, all of these things are happening so fast. So I think Asia is a very fast-growing digitized economy. I think the fastest digitizing economy for payments in the world. The speed of adoption is tremendously fast. I believe we did around 10 billion transactions on UPI in India, 10 billion transactions. That's forecast to be 100 billion by 2030, and probably will happen sooner. And that's just one example of the adoption here in Singapore. Obviously, we have Pay Now. In Australia, real-time payments with Pay 2. It's just so innovative here and so much energy as a region that we can't not but ride this wave of AI and all the things that it brings to us for our businesses, for our technology, for our lives. Asia, there's no better place to be living and working, my view anyway.
So how do you think, say, cultural or even regulatory differences across the region shape how Stripe is going to strategy in terms of rolling out all these things like AI or stablecoin technologies to the businesses and maybe to even the individual consumers out there?
Yeah, well, we really follow the regulators. So, our goal is to bring innovation to market, obviously to do that in a very compliant way. And so we're encouraging engagement on these areas. We're working with many of our AI customer partners as well in terms of what they're doing and how they're engaging with government, because obviously you can't turn on the news without people talking about, do we regulate AI? Do we not regulate? How fast should we do it? My view on this is everything should have some guardrails around it. By the time any government regulates AI today, it will have changed so much, the regulations will be almost irrelevant. So being able to support governments in how they look at these things, make them aware of what's happening, what's possible, how fast things are moving, I think you start to put guardrails in place. But it's, as I said at the beginning, we've found fire, and you just can't regulate fire without really knowing what it's doing. But the process and the intellectual discussion and thought around the impacts of AI, I think, are very important for every community to discuss, whether it's commerce based or it has more social construct impacts that we need to consider.
So what's the one question that you wish more people would ask you about Stripe but they don't?
That's a really good question, Bernard.
What would you want
I want them to say?
Ask you.
I would love them to ask me, how can you help us do more with the infrastructure that you've built?
So I'm going to follow up with that question. How would you help me as a business such that, Stripe can help me to scale my business?
Well, the things that we would talk about, Bernard, is what's your community that's purchasing from you? Are they purchasing one-off things? Could you build a subscription model with them where they pay by what they're using? Which countries are you in? Can we help make sure that when someone wishes to buy something from you in another country, that they can buy in their own local currency, so it's a seamless transaction? They're all of the things that we'd have conversations around. Stripe has built such a comprehensive platform and infrastructure that there's many discussions to have. And the one thing that really always drives me crazy, if someone says, hey, Stripe's a payment gateway. Yes, we are. But that's like, saying Amazon sells books. Yes, they do. They also do a lot more than that. And, that was the payment gateway component is how we started as our company, but as global financial infrastructure and software for financial services, I think we're on a path of really impacting the communities and merchants around the world.
As I think we have having this conversation today, I think even for some of my audience in the US will be surprised that there's Stripe POS running around in Asia, different parts of the world. So my traditional closing question, what does great look like for Stripe in the Asia Pacific and Japan for you?
For me, great looks like my customers coming to me and saying, Paul, you've helped me grow our business. We're executing on everything we wish to do because Stripe has been a great partner for us. At the end of the day, for all that Stripe does, a founding principle of the company that's up in lights in every conversation is that we're user first. We build our company, we listen to our customers, we want to support them the best way. Are we perfect in every aspect of what we do? No, but our customers will tell us that, and we're opening to listen. I think, our CEOs do a fireside for our whole company every week. And every week we open with a customer talking to the whole of the Stripe employee base every single week. And one of the key questions is not just what are we doing well, but what could we do more to help you grow your business? And I think that is what good looks like when my customers tell me, Paul, you've delivered on that promise, and we love working with you and your team.
and I will look forward to that. So, Paul, many thanks for coming on the show. And of course, we have two very quick questions. First of all, on a personal note, anything that have inspired you recently that you want to recommend to my audience?
Well, I'll go traditional and newish world.
Okay.
Tomorrow is the 60th anniversary of Singapore, and I'm reading Lee Kuan Yew's biography. I also am listening to a range of podcasts, and I listened to a podcast, Untapped, with Vinod Khosla, and that was super interesting.
And you're talking about Lee Kuan Yew's book. You're talking about the two books. One is the Singapore story, and the other one's From the Third World to the First.
Yeah, the Singapore story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, of course, happy National Day. Of course, this podcast will be out after that, but I'm sure we're having that 1 month of celebration. So, last thing, how can my audience find you and making sure that they know what Stripe is doing for them?
They can find us on stripe.com. If there's anything there, we have a contact sales form. You can ping. My team will get back to you as soon as possible. Or ping Bernard and he'll put you in touch as well.
Okay. I now also have a new job to help everybody to connect to Stripe.
Yeah.
Okay. So many thanks for everyone. You can definitely find us on YouTube, Spotify, and every other channel out there. Subscribe to us on LinkedIn's newsletter or our main site. Once again, Paul, many thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Bernard. Great to be here.